video. I just wanted to get some of the housekeeping out of the way. So last week, we started working on showing our score. And it's just kind of that debug print, kind of that really small, tiny text. And we have our start screen. I've been playing with adding some more submarines. But yeah, our score up there is kind of small, kind of hard to read. Exactly. So the idea is right here. So we're gonna kind of get started talking about adding some actual fonts and some actual text that we can have a little bit better control over for our start. To do that, the EBTension game engine has recently added a new version of their text package. And I can't remember if I've pulled it in this game or not. And I can't remember the import path. So really quick, I'm gonna pull in the latest. Yep, so it looks like this will give us an updated version of the game engine. Let's go get -u. We'll update it for us. All right, and now we can create a variable to hold a font face. I wish I could go into all the details of fonts and how font drawing works. I have a cursory understanding of it, but basically the font tells the drawing engine how to shape the letters, and then the drawing engine will handle it for us. So to do that, we need to load in a font. And the way that EBTension handles it is we get a font source, which is basically a wrapper around the raw bytes of the font, and then when it comes time to drawing that font to screen, we can actually turn it into a font. So we're going to define this M+ font source, and the reason why it's just M+ is because that's the font that EBTension makes available. You could pull a different font off of your computer if you wanted to and load up a font. But for the sake of this class, we'll just use the one that's provided, and then I don't have to worry about distributing a font that I don't have rights to. Okay, new Go text font source. Fonts dot M+. We've kind of done a little bit of hand waving over readers. We use them a little bit when we load assets from the file system or from an embedded system, but we don't really work with them very closely. But if we see here this M+1 regular font, if we go look at its source here, they have an embed call. And so they're going to take this .ttf, this font file, and they're going to embed it as a slice of bytes.
So you can do this with any TTF material?
Yeah, if you went and found like a royalty-free TTF file, you could embed it alongside of your game and load it in the same fashion. But right here, if we look at this new Go text face source, it takes what's called an IO reader, and that's just a general interface. Does anybody remember what an interface is? You two, do you two remember? It's a collection of functions, a collection of functionality. So a struct is a collection of properties, and an interface is a collection of functionality. That's I think the easiest way to describe it.
Kind of an agreement of like how something's going to behave.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, yeah, it is the agreement. This new Go text face source is expecting an IO reader, and that is the agreement of how we're going to read this data. But we're doing this bytes.new reader, and what this new reader does, it actually turns a slice of bytes into an in-memory reader. It's kind of complex. I don't know if we need to spend tons of time covering why that's the case, but we just know that we need to turn a slice of bytes into a reader so that this new Go text face source can read it. And using the bytes.new reader is how we're doing that. So we'll check our error. And if there's an error in this case, we will exit the game. This os.exit2, I'm just setting an exit code that's not a zero exit code. The zero exit code says everything was good. So we're just set this ourselves. And now that we have this source, now we'll actually be able to use it when it comes time to draw our, kind of have to skip this pane over a little bit. It's kind of hard looking all the way over there. So we'll comment this out, but we can now use this source or this font source to actually draw the font. And that's in this text.draw method. I'm just going to run up here real quick and check and make sure that we imported the text v2 because they've updated some of the ways that it works, and the font source is part of that. So we imported text v2. And now at our draw, we can pass in the screen. And we can pass in the text that we want it to draw for us. And then we're actually going to need to position it. So this debug print lets us just set a position. But when we're using the text, we need to use the text.draw options. So if you remember, we use the draw options when we're drawing our other images, our other sprites. Let's see, textops.gom.translate. And this will let us position our text on the screen. And then we can change the color as well. I don't know what the default color is, so maybe we should check and see what the default color is. Oh, we need our font too. So we have a font face. That means we've got the bytes loaded up. We have a font face source, but we need to turn it into a actual font face. So we'll pass in our source, and then we can pass in a size as well. Maybe we'll do 18. And I'm going to separate these on different lines just so we can see a little bit better what's going on. All right. So this, we've updated the package, but this says we're missing a go.sum entry. Basically, the sum takes our packages and hashes it to make sure there's not, it's kind of a, what's the term that I'm looking for? I just forgot it. It's where people sneak in malware in your libraries. Node.js has been suffering from it pretty bad lately, but I can't remember what the attack is called off the top of my head. But if we do this go mod tidy, it will just make sure everything's downloaded and that our go.sum is updated. So let's check running it now. We've pulled in a bunch of other resources, so it'll take a second to compile because we got some new things going. white is the default color. I was hoping black would. I was hoping black would be the default color, but that's good because now we can come here and we can change the color as well. All right, so we can change our color. Looks like our positioning is off now that we're using this. And it's a larger size font. But if we look at our score, we can see it, but it's also not like very clear. What do we do in our numbers to make it a little bit easier to tell? After the thousands, what do? Add a comma, yep. So our score is kind of challenging to see. I mean, it's not white and it's larger text for sure, but we need to figure out how to add a comma, and we need to reposition it a little bit. I'm gonna bump it up 10 pixels. And then we're going to talk about another package in Go. And I think we're just going to make it another global variable. We can get into a long discussion of why that's good or bad, but right now we are going to there's another package out there called message. And this message provides a printer. And when we initialize a message, we pass in a language. Have either of you learned another language?
Like 2 words in French.
2 words in French. Very little Spanish. So I learned Portuguese, and you said you had a comma, right? But in Portuguese, they actually use a period where we put commas, and they use commas where we put periods. It's weird. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it, and it took me a long time to unwrap my head around it. But that's one of the reasons why we have to actually pass the language into our printer. And I think we'll show it as an example. Right here, we've created a new printer. And we said we're going to use English. And we'll just use English right now. I haven't dug into the package to figure out how to determine the system's language. And I think that's possible. But for today, we'll use this system language. And instead of this funct printf, we're going to use our printer. And we're going to do a sprintf, which is a format, and it will return a string, and we'll pass our score in. And now, let's just give this a check real quick. A lot of submarines. Now, is that kind of like what you were thinking? We have a comma. It looks, and it's easier to, the word I put in the blog was grok. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It was from an old book. And it was like the space traveler, if I remember correctly. And they used the term grok as like the ability to understand something completely. And so with that comma, it's a little bit easier to grok what's going on. Well, I just changed the language to Portuguese. Look, it's not a comma anymore. So, you know, I just wanted to show you, like, kind of as an example that by changing the language for this message.printer, it was able to change some language specifics without us having to go in and write our own algorithm to say, okay, are you in English? Then we can separate these by commas or by periods, depending on what language it is. We just create this new printer, and then the printer will handle it for us. So, okay, so we've added that there. We've got our score added in now.
I'm just gonna keep it on Portuguese.
We could, but I'm going to change it back. Okay, so if we look at our to-do, we now need to change levels. So how about we get started on that? What is the condition that we're looking for to determine that our level is complete?
Enemy ships.
Enemy ships are what?
The submarines are dead.
All the submarines are done, yep.
I do
So,
like ships and torpedoes, so like you'd have all the torpedoes and then
you could do torpedoes as well. What do you guys prefer? If you leave the torpedoes, it makes it, you could potentially increase your score. But I think for today, we might just do submarines.
After you kill all the ships.
You could. You could.
You have one bar health left. There's one torpedo. You try to shoot it.
All right, so what we'll do is we've got this submarine slice, and we can check this submarine slice and say, hey, if this is empty, all right, so we've got our slice of submarines, and we've run through all of the submarines updates. And if we remember, if a submarine's dead or hit, it will set its is active flag to false, and then we will not add it to the retain slice. And then we set that retain slice back to the original slice that's on our struct. So if we have our submarines is length is 0, then we can go ahead and do something. Now, a lot of other languages, if you have like a slice or an array or a list, there's like a dot properties or dot methods on them. Again, because of C's or Go's heritage is C, they have actual just methods that you would call and pass things as parameters, at least for a lot of the built-ins. All right, Asa, you ready for a challenging question? What are we going to do to handle this now?
What do you mean?
So if we know that the level's done, or that our submarines are 0, what are we going to do now?
Refresh the level.
We're going to refresh the level, okay. So if we look up here, we have this game started method, and that's what's called from our start screen. You remember that? We need our level to be able to tell the game that the level has been completed. Do you remember how we've been communicating from the level back to the game?
I do not remember.
All right, so we have this level interactor that we've been using, because before we were passing methods themselves around or functions around, and I kind of talked about it in passing and said there's going to come a time when there's going to be enough methods that we're going to be passing around that it makes sense to turn it into an interface. So we can now add. Now we could do a couple different things. It depends on kind of naming and just keeping things straight in our minds as much as anything, because naming is a challenge. So we've added a method to our level interactor interface, and we've gotten a compile error that says, hey, the level interactor doesn't have all of the methods that it's required. So our game, because our game is what we're passing, if we look here, our game is what we're passing to the level to say this is how you're going to interact with the game. So we need to pass or create another method complete on our game so that we can satisfy this method or this interface. So if we jump back in, once all of our submarines are gone, then we can call our interactor and say the level's complete. And then you are saying we need to refresh the level, right? So it's kind of an interesting thought because we could do a couple different things. I kind of like the idea of having separate levels and letting each level do their own thing, because say down the road we wanted to have kind of a night level and we wanted to have like a different background, like a dark background and a dark sea and things like that. The level could handle that itself. And I think that should be kind of a separate level that we create that manages that. So what we're going to want to do then is we're going to want to create a new level and set the level on the game to that new level. I just pulled our new level call out of this level complete, and I'm going to call, so this is what's challenging, is we have this level complete, and maybe what we want is so our naming kind of comes in, but if we come here, we can have a new level method, and our level complete can call new level, and then our game started can call a new level. Oh. You know, we may want to have like different level cleanup that happens here that would be different than the game started, so we can have our new level. But let's come here to our new level, and let's say we've got this level index. If you remember correctly, we're passing the level index into our level, and right now the only thing that we're really doing with it is we're just saying just add as many submarines as there is for your level. Now, as was pointed out a couple times, we probably don't want to do that because earlier we tried running 50 submarines and it was pretty wild.
Well, yeah, because like you died instantly because each one of those fires one every like 1 to 3 seconds. So.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I want the level index.
And then that's 50 of them, so.
Yes, exactly. It was kind of crazy. So what we can do, I can't remember if this is going to let me do this or not. Yeah, we'll do the +1, plus sign 1. And let's see what happens here.
So that's at least like 15 missiles a second.
Yeah, it was getting pretty crazy. So we've got 2 right here because we've got a little bit of a logic issue. Let's see what happens. Need a lot more practice at playing this game. Well, I never professed to be a fan. I actually had two drive right into. There you go. Yeah, I had two drive right into the depth charge again. All right, so right now we have our levels progressing. We just keep on playing, right? All right.
You should put like a level counter in the corner.
Let's do it. But before we do that, there is something that has been bugging me every time I play this at home, and then I forget to update it. And now I can't even remember exactly where. It's where we're logging out the number of depth charges. Let's see, where's our update there? I can't even remember where we're doing that. Let's see, what are we logging out? Depth charges. Yeah, I can't remember for the life of me. I think that's why I've never. All right, it is in the level. I've looked at it like how many times it's in the draw method. There we go. All right. Oh, that didn't like me. Oh. My IDE has been having some problems lately. IntelliJ's like put a release out that doesn't respond to text, like the keyboard at all. And it's happening on multiple of like my work machine and this machine, so I don't think it's just something wrong with mine. All right, let's get rid of that. So you want to write the level, right, Asa? So let's go to our level, and we can add a draw method in our level. So we'll put our options here. Translate, and I think we were putting our y at 10, so let's go 1000 and 10. Text ops dot. We wanted to change the color, right? Scale color black. Text dot draw. We want to draw it to the screen, but we need our game printer. I don't know if we'll make it all the way to like level 1000, but you maybe could. Especially if we had like the airplanes dropping like mechanics kits and things like I kind of talked about. Yeah. Let's see, we'll put our index. Oh, index here. Dot text face. Let's see here. And then size 18. And then okay. Yeah, put our level in for us. We're in the wrong spot. It's right there in our health bar. I thought I told it to do 1000, but I guess I only told it to do 100. And in that matter, maybe let's do 900. All right, and then there was something else I just thought of and forgot. Oh yeah, it's our multiple submarines. When we first created it, created it, we're gonna pass it to 0. But I've incremented it beforehand. Does that make sense? So when we did our level, we kind of assumed this was going to be 0 would be our first level, like, you know, a lot of computer sciencey stuff. But we're going to a +1. So let's increment our level after we create a level. All right, so we've got 1. So one of the challenges of building a UI, a user interface, is look at, like, we've got our health bar here, and we've got our score here, and we've got our level right here. Hey, so where do you think the level should go? Should we put it like all the way at the edge?
Yeah, I've that or next to the.
Next to the.
Yeah, the edge.
So what if we put it right next to here? What happens when our score gets into the thousands and tens of thousands?
Go straight.
It will overlap. I wish I had a good answer for that in the EB10 engine. I'm not sure how they do it, but basically what you have to do is you have to create the text that you want to draw, and then you have to actually measure the text that you're going to draw. I haven't looked into the API to do that, so I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head, but we have another problem where our ship is drawing its health bar, and it's also drawing its score, but the level's drawing the level number. And so we have a couple different things that are drawing, and we may not have access to sizes to measure them. So down the road, we would have to think of a better way of managing that. But let's say we know this is the text that we want to print out. We got a rainy day on us, huh? So we've got the text that we want here. I don't exactly know measure. So if we have a text.measure, maybe what we need, text, face, line spacing in pixels. I don't know what our line spacing is, but this measure should return us a width and a height for our score. Question is, do you guys want to spend time trying to measure text, or should we work on our level a little bit and spawn in new submarines instead? That's kind of the direction I think we should go. Spawning in new submarines.
Sounds more fun than measuring text.
I agree. All right, so let's look here. Let's just assume that our first level is going to be level 10. So when we create our game struct, we're going to start at level 10. And let's just check this out real quick and look at the number of submarines that we have. That seems like 10 or 11. It is. So let's say we only want, I don't know, how many submarines do we want on the screen at a time? Generally speaking. All of the submarines. So we want, this isn't going to go very well, I don't think.
It'll go great. You probably won't die.
think all the submarines might be just a few too many submarines. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna argue maybe all the submarines isn't the best idea.
Maybe for a really hard level would be a good idea.
Well, I don't think you can't beat it. Based
Let's.
on the size of your submarine, you can't.
Yeah. So let's say that we want 5 submarines on the screen at a time.
I was, 5 or 6 seemed like it would be the max.
So we'll come up here right now and we'll put a constant in. And we'll call this,
It seems like you'd want that as the maximum, and maybe they can move faster is the way you increase versus putting more than that on.
yeah. So there are definitely a number of levers that we could pull.
How fast they shoot, how fast they move.
Well, let's just for now say max subs on screen. So
And then we've talked, I don't know if we do it here, but you talked about adding other types, and maybe as you get higher up, you get new types, and they have full credits or something, too, would be
yeah,
something, but.
yeah. Eventually that would be good. So if we're gonna have our start subs, if we're gonna take an index, this is kind of an interesting situation because we need to get there's a couple ways that we could do this, but we could basically just say start subs is max subs, or we could say it's index. We could just then say start subs is max subs. So we could work our way up. And then here, we could do start subs. And then we need to keep track of
But that one, are you gonna still let them have a total number of subs they have to kill based on the index, or were you just saying you can only have?
yeah, so I've been thinking through this as we're going. That's a good question. So we can set our start subs up and say, okay, we don't want to have any more subs than the max subs on screen. So we know if we know what the index is, we know what level we're on, and we're not changing that. So what we need to do then is mark how many subs that have been destroyed, right? So if we have like a destroyed sub count, okay, so if the is active gets flipped when a sub is destroyed, then we know if it fails the is active check, then we've destroyed one and we can add a +1 to our destroy sub count. And then if that's the case, we just need to add another sub, right?
Up to your limit, I guess.
Up to our limit, yeah.
Or would you want to have them kill a certain number before you add more in, or you always
I would almost think we would spawn another one in
pretty soon after?
yeah, at least for right now while we're trying to get all of this working. But I don't think this is, so if we increase our destroyed sub count, we don't want to add any more subs. I guess I should have thought through this problem just a little bit more before we came in, but it's a good opportunity to do some logical thinking. So if our destroyed sub count increases, we want to how do we want to do this? Because if we're below the max subs on screen, we just want to destroy them, right? If index is greater than so if our game has more submarines than our max subs on screen, and then if our destroyed count minus max subs on screen is less than, oh, we want to do plus, don't we? Then we can see, and we have level.request torpedo. Does that seem right? At least for our simple case. No, that's not right.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
All the subs.
Yeah, so we want to put that inside of our destroy, right?
May as well just call it sync at that point.
Yeah. You're going to be destroyed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not adding though, are we? Gotta think about my logic. Okay. Yeah, so let's see, the thought that I had is we destroy a sub, we increase the count,
Well,
and
so
if
can you go back to the where you're creating your level, like your new level?
uh-huh.
So you took in your, well no, yeah. So, oh no, so you do leave index set. I thought maybe you changed index.
Yeah, our index is just it's getting set here, and we don't change it because we're showing the level on our text. So that's what I was thinking. We count a destroyed sub, and then if our index is greater than our max subs on screen, that means that we're going to want to potentially spawn in a new sub. Because we only, you know,
Well, does that? We need to know how many we have. So you're thinking of using the destroyed count to know how many you have on screen, sort of.
yeah,
Trying to control how many you have.
Yeah, my thought was we could kind of always try to, not always keep 5, but add in up once one is destroyed. And so that's why I was thinking,
You started at level 10.
yeah.
So it should have
So we destroy one,
plus max up on screen.
and then destroyed sub count is 1, plus 5 is less than index. Oh, it's because we overwrite it right here.
Oh, you can't add in while you're Oh, you were using the original version.
Yeah, I was. Because my brain was kind of putting it down below the first go now. Let's check this out. Syntax errors and logic errors. If I can get them one that close to I mean, it probably would be better to like have one creep in from the edge, but now. What we would do is we would create a new constructor and allow it to randomly pick what height it's in, and then we could pick if it's going to be on the left or the right and have it move in.
Does it create all of them?
So we're creating the initial 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot. Did our requesting a new sub give it a new random height, or is it just using?
Yeah. So we have a new sub right here that
We're only asking for one.
that we've got some. So we could. We need our request torpedo call. All right, and then we're kind of just doing these layers and lanes. And this layer is going to turn a float 64. And we can take this. Let's see, what did I name that? Pick layer. Okay. And then instead of like picking a lane, we could really just needs a direction and a starting point. Actually, I'm kind of curious real quick. Sub 1 is the only sub that I have in right now. We'll just say set it centered. Let's see our X. We need to just determine that, don't we? Wait a minute. We'll just say this is minus 128 right now, so it can kind of drive in, if you will. I don't know, what do submarines do? Do they? And we could make these just a little bit faster. Fire will say time now. Cool down. We need to pick a random cool down. A little copy paste coding for the moment. And we could maybe make these ones potentially fire just a little bit faster, just for fun. And then request torpedo. And then if it's coming in this way, I can't remember if we need to flip it horizontally or not. And we may run into another issue because our update method says if it's less than screen width. So we might have to tweak a couple other things with that method. Did I even call the new method? I didn't. I didn't even call the new method.
Oh, for spawn.
New spawn, yeah, spawn sub. I still don't know if it's going to work quite right. We might get a submarine that sticks to the edge of the window and does nothing. Look at that. So that's slightly better than like a jarring. Well, I think because it was headed this direction to the right, it just looks for the...
You're just checking to change your direction, not whether it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if it's headed that direction, we're just gonna say, okay, if half of the ship's width plus your location puts you past the edge of the screen, then flip around. And so we could potentially...
I was thinking it was like the torpedoes where it would just delete it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if it would like the ship just turns around right at the end. If it would look better if it like went off the screen and then came back, like it actually did the turning around.
Yeah,
So it would kind of go off and then come back on for all of them.
well, let's see. Let's look at our update. Width divided by 2. So we could, if x plus width divided by 2, like you could get it to go
Part way off.
almost,
Or not. I mean, I don't know. I might try that.
yeah. Well, I mean, we can look at it. Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to fix our spawn ourselves so they don't fall. And those ones are faster, are considerably faster. Well, and if we were, like, we would keep track of, like, what location the submarine came in at. there's a lot of additional logic that could be added to really make the spawning and the the AI itself more. So let's come here. Right now, we have it as flipped is going to be false because that is the default value, or horizontal flip, sorry, is going to be false because that's the default value. So in our spawn sub, we can say horizontal is false, and this, when it's false, our X position is going to be minus 128. That's where we got the look of it driving in. And then we could say, we could do a 0 or 1. When I like to look for randoms, I like to do just a little bit. Give us a couple different chances. So we'll say if, let's see. Okay, then horizontal flipped will be true. And then X will be screen width plus 128, which I've got some constants and magic numbers kind of added in there. But we'll say horizontal flipped is horizontal flipped. So this should be giving us a slight chance of having a new submarine spawn in from the other side. Increase our probability. Give it a closer to a 50% chance. Is 0 even or off? 0 even or off? I think even discrete math about that one determined. Discrete math. Oh, there we go. Good, we just had one come out. Well, it actually does kind of increase some speed because it's just flipping. It's not, we don't actually have like a spin animation and a pause of movement. So yeah, if I could beat this one, check and see. I did die. There was some stacked, but if you noticed, when we restarted the game, it set us at level 12.
Nice.
So this is like the infinite level glitch. So when we have a game over,
More like an infinite lives glitch.
so either on a game start or a game over, we need to remember to set our level index back to 0. And then we will start back at,
I mean, it's totally normal to start at level 10, die, and then go to level 0.
yeah, why not?
sense. If someone dies on the
I'm embarrassed about it. Okay. I don't see any new submarines spawning in at level 2, so that's good.
it's just two. Submarines.
Oh man, there's a tricky one right at the very, very bottom.
There's like one submarine that's kind of hard to spot.
Yeah. Oh man.
You get it, it makes you.
Man. That tricksy sub. We need to make the spawn in submarines torpedo faster. Just for I don't think we spawned in one on that. What do you guys think? We've got one problem. I think. Check level 7. So we got well, so in our 8 weeks, we have at least a playable sync sub game with level complexities, some different variables as far as our subs goes with cooldown durations and different speeds when they spawn in, different things like that. We've got score, we've got life, we've got a level indicator. So I'd say for 8 weeks we've done pretty good. Does anybody have any questions for today? Well, I guess if nobody has any questions, then.
I mean, I think I followed everything we did, so I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we just created a new constructor for when we wanted to spawn in a new submarine, and that let us do a little bit different tweaking. So we could come here and we could, create our separate subtype if we wanted to and load up a different asset, but I didn't have it readily available, so I kind of skipped that. But that at least shows you, how you can have separate constructors and load up your struct data differently. We've got our game printer and our M+ font source for everything. And
Would it make the Go version of it? I guess would it make sense to? I guess you could have your sub. If you wanted to have different subs, you could just, I guess, give them a different image when you created them, or would it make sense to kind of create a sub interface and actually have an image and speeds and other things that like?
yeah, so I think going forward, if we were to do that, or if you want to do it on your own, I would probably keep this submarine struct here. Well, there's a couple ways that you could do it, because this submarine has its speed and its sprite, and you could have like some sort of a randomization in your new submarine that just randomly picked to promote it, and then you could just change the sprite and change the speed that it has. Or if you wanted to, you could keep this as like a composable type, and then you could create, like, say, an attack submarine, or you know, I don't know terminology of subs very well, but you,
Yeah, I just
I
know.
have the greatest idea. One that avoids you.
yes, an invisible submarine.
Well, they can randomly change directions.
The Crazy Ivan, yeah, the Hunt for Red October submarine. And then you could have that have additional properties, and then you could run the update. So just real quick, we'll throw this in there. Say you have like you can have Red October, and this will have its own submarine. Like it's composed of a submarine. And then in the Red October update method, you would do r.submarine.update to get all of the update functions that the submarine that it composes has. And then here you could do like a random call, like we were doing with the direction that it spawns in at. And then if the random call was successful, so maybe, 50 or 5% of the time, then you could do like a Crazy Ivan. And your Crazy Ivan would then change direction. So you could do that, and then you could randomly pick one of your submarines to be a Red October submarine, and that's then where you kind of are going to have to store a little extra logic. Maybe you only want one Red October submarine to come in per level, or the potential of one. Yeah, or maybe on every multiple of 10, all of them are Red October submarines. And then this way you could get the submarine, and then you could also override any of the properties. But really at this point, you wouldn't really need to override them as like a composed, because you'll just have access to them, and you can access them. Because here, let's actually do that. R dot horizontal flipped. Man, if I could type, all of a sudden my brain just stopped. Right here, we can access the property on submarine, and then you could change that. You could have like an attack submarine that all of a sudden decided it didn't want to have a cooldown, and it could just fire a bunch, and so yeah, like so it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to just change the speed and the cooldown, you could just use the same one and then create a new constructor that could create that for you. But if you wanted to add new functionality on top of the existing submarine functionality, then you would create a new type, and you'd run all your updates, and then you would then handle any updates.
It's crazy.
So crazy, we're gonna go ran.int n. So, if you get a 55, then out of your random, then you pull a Crazy Ivan. Or, if you wanted to, like, you could have a call back into the level, and you can say, okay, level, tell me where the ship is, and if the ship's directly above you, then you could change your logic that way too, and your update could be handled. So,
So one just randomly change would be based on.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then but then the question is like you ask now, now you're level. You're not just storing submarines because you've got a crazy Ivan and you want to be able to run that. Then yeah, you'd probably have some sort of type. Like you could just have. And then
Yeah, that's what I was.
yeah, okay, yeah, right, yeah. So then anything that contains those methods could now, and except for it wouldn't be a pointer to an updatable, but it'd be an updatable. And then yeah, we're gonna miss the is active, but you could add is active into this and then just have the entity supply that. So yeah, sorry, I didn't understand your question exactly, but yeah, that's how you would do it. Or you could you could call it something as an attacker, or something like that would let you add that in there. All right. Well, so are we still planning on meeting next week to go over some kind of lab stuff? You guys want to bring computers in? And, I think you all have been, so we can bust them out and go over stuff. Okay, well, that is all that I have for tonight then.
Awesome.